Welcome to episode 27 of Oscar Sunday. I'm Austin Johnson.
I'm Connor Eyzaguirre.
And this is a Herman J. Mankiewicz showcase centered around Citizen Kane from 1941. The greatest film ever made? I don't know. Do you know, Connor?
In some circles, not mine, but we'll get to that.
We'll talk about that. You may have watched David Fincher's new film on Netflix, Mank, or maybe you're planning on watching it. Connor and I will definitely be talking about that movie later on, and we'll give awards out for Citizen Kane, like we always do. Citizen Kane received 9 nominations at the 14th Academy Awards, but I want to start the show off with a film that came out a year after, and it's the only other screenplay that Mank. That's how we're gonna call him on this show. That's I think that's how everybody's gonna call him these days. That's the only other screenplay. Pride of the Yankees, the film after Citizen Kane, 1942. It's the only other screenplay that he was nominated for at the Oscars. So this was just at Half Price Books while you and I were just hanging out, and I bought it, and we both watched it. And I think we were equally kind of surprised at how good it was.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'd heard of this film for years. I'm never really been a big baseball guy, but in the past couple of years, I've really warmed up to baseball movies, and I fucking love Gary Cooper. So
yeah,
this was a treat. I really enjoyed The Pride of the Yankees.
Yeah, me too. And this, what's amazing about The Pride of the Yankees is that it has 11 nominations at the 15th Academy Awards, just again, a year later after Citizen Kane. And it's, not as strong of a film as Citizen Kane, but it certainly has something to say and is definitely one of the best baseball movies I've seen. Of course, we did Moneyball on this show. We both adore that screenplay. We adore the way it's directed by Bennett Miller and Brad Pitt and Jonah Hill. It's wonderful. But here we have Gary Cooper. We have fucking Babe Ruth playing himself. Teresa Wright. It's a really clever little screenplay for Mank, and a few other guys are credited for it. Joe Swerling amongst all of them. I'm glad I have this movie. I'm glad I own it. I don't know if we'll ever base a whole show around it or anything, but I think it's worth your time.
It definitely is. If especially if you're a classic Yankees fan. I mean, this is as big as you can get. Murderers Row. We all know who they are, and Lou Gehrig especially was such a powerhouse and such an incredible influence on baseball itself, and just the fact that he passed away at 37 years old from ALS, and
and of course has the disease is now named after him.
Lou Gehrig's disease. It's crazy. And in such a short amount of time, he became like a living legend. And this movie really kind of showcases his humility. I know his wife was heavily involved in production, and she didn't see a single thing wrong with the first cut. She was like, you did it. Like, you captured my husband's life perfectly, which means that Lou Gehrig, was a good man. And I love stories about good people. And I can see Mank's kind of flavor in these movies. He is so good at snappy dialogue and larger than life characters. I mean, Lou Gehrig, he wrote Lou Gehrig as like a good man's Charles Foster Kane.
Exactly. Such an interesting way that they kind of, in some way they kind of paralleled, because you have this great guy who meets his fall. And then, Kane, Charles Foster Kane, who's just this monster. Incredible stuff. I know, Lou Gehrig, of what you've mentioned, multiple times, the 1927 Yankees, they've been mentioned time and time again in film. A movie we love is fucking Sandlot. You don't need to be a baseball fan to kind of relate and kind of understand what's going on here when you're talking about the New York Yankees and Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig, these legends, titans of the game. I really do want people to not take it lightly. I have seen some of the reviews for it, and people call it whatever, cheesy, this and that. I disagree. I think I went into it with kind of low expectations and came out surprised, and almost Gary Cooper almost brought me to tears with his directly quoted speech, the Lou Gehrig speech at the end. Damn, brought me to tears, man. And that's the power of filmmaking, right? 80 years later, a film can do that to you. Makes me feel a lot different than Citizen Kane does, but I like when a movie makes me feel warm, and that's what The Pride of the Yankees does.
Yeah, straight up. And I think Citizen Kane kind of gives you the opposite reaction. You feel pissed, or at least I did. At the end of Citizen Kane, I'm like, that guy just fucking ruined everything he touched. He was almost inhuman, and it really showcased that level of wealth is almost a different species. Like there is very little you have in common with a billionaire. I mean, they exist on a plane that we will never even be able to touch. And Citizen Kane shows that isolation so well that no matter how much you want to love, you can't. It's not in your DNA when you are that rich. It's, yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, that's the best part of, Kane's influence on things that we love, things that film fans love, and films that the Oscars love, is that rise and fall. And just that character study of different kinds of guys, whether it be, dealing with money or this or that, or fame and fortune, it is so fascinating to watch. And Kane is kind of the outlier. It's the first one to really hone in on that and really nail it and do it in such an entertaining way. And of course, we're going to talk a lot about that movie later. And I can't wait to give awards out, because I really have no idea where you're going to go with Citizen Kane. I had a very hard time choosing each of the 4 awards that we have. So I'm very excited to do that later on. And I think we should bring up a film that kind of connects, what we're talking about here and how we can connect it to our conversation about Citizen Kane later, is the film we watched yesterday. If you're listening to this, we would have watched it 2 days ago, and that is Mank, which came out on Netflix. David Fincher, Gary Oldman, Amanda Seyfried. You sign us up, right? Already. We don't really need to see the trailer or anything. You and I are kind of like, all right, but we're in. And that shit fucking delivered. Let me tell you what I think. Right off the bat, I'll let you, really talk about it. I think it's the best film Fincher has done since Social Network.
Fuck, that's high praise. Wow, from you, that means a lot.
Yeah, I'm talking about. I love Gone Girl and I love Dragon Tattoo.
This was very much in David Fincher's eye. Like it's been there in his, like in the back of his head for 20 years. This was a script written by his father. He was planning on doing this in the 90s. Didn't happen, but Fincher is nothing if not patient. And here we are with this monumentous look into classic Hollywood from the side that you don't usually get. You don't usually get the writer's insight of classic Hollywood. Because there was a time, believe it or not, when the writers were not fully appreciated. Can you believe that?
How about that?
And I loved getting to see this witty, sarcastic, secret genius just kind of shamble through life and end up writing one of the most influential films in history. And kind of realize as he's writing it that this is a masterpiece and I need people to know that I wrote it. It's a very good story in itself. And I love a good biopic. And Fincher delivered for sure. I was very impressed with Gary Oldman's performance. I think it's his best work in decades. And yeah, I was glued to the screen, straight up.
Yeah, man. And I'll bounce off that right away. Gary Oldman won that Oscar for The Darkest Hour, but this right here is a real Oscar-winning performance. What he's doing, transforming over a decade, right? Gary Oldman playing Mank through the 30s as he's just churning out film after film after film after film, culminating to this moment in time in cinematic history, this moment that we can pinpoint, because we all know when we hear Citizen Kane, 1941, Orson Welles, Mank, we know exactly what it is. And to recreate this, and Gary Oldman is literally fucking recreating this guy that we just don't know enough about. And man, that's one of Fincher's best attributes, right? Is he'll bring up some story that's just like, oh man, how did no one else think of that? How did nobody else think to make a Facebook movie? Jesus, this guy's a genius. all these things that he's done throughout his career. You know, the Zodiac film is something I thought about a lot while I'm watching Mank. Like, this guy's just a master of his craft. He knows just the way, the way he chooses the guys he's working with. You know, of course, this script is very special. Like you said, it's 20 years in the making at least. And working with specific, Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, and, picking specific people for different things. And I just adore every little touch. But Gary Oldman really is what you're watching him become Mank. You're watching him recreate this guy. This is what he used to do. To me, this is what he was, best at, in the 90s, playing these kind of just fucking fast talking, smartest guy in the room. Let's go. I'm the guy you're watching, no matter what's happening on the screen. I might not be the best looking, but you're going to watch me. And Gary just reminded me how damn good he is.
Yeah, straight up. I mean, if you ever were doubting his, his credentials, look no further. I mean, this guy is one of the hardest working character actors in the business, and pairing him with David Fincher is a movie geek's dream. Fincher, I think one of the things that I don't think he gets enough credit for is his eye for production design.
Oh,
and how he can recreate a time period to the letter. And
yes,
we saw him do that with 1970s San Francisco and Zodiac, with early 2000s Harvard with The Social Network, and he killed it with 1930s Hollywood. My Lord. MGM Studios circa 1938. Good Lord.
Okay, that scene when you're with Mayor walking through the lot, I'm looking around, and that's the shit. I'm like, man, I wish I was in a theater so bad so that everyone around me, our eyes can just light up the way we did when we saw Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. When you go back to a specific time and place in this world that we love. That's so special, so special. And I think Mank is going to be looked at, I think some people may think we're a little bit, praising it maybe too much, but that's because I think people don't know quite what they're watching. And here, I'm going to bring up Once Upon a Time in Hollywood again. When you use fictional characters and non-fictional and real life people, but you're using Leo and Pitt as the fake guys, you can do anything you want. But what we're doing here is actually everyone's real. There's a shout out to Charlie Chaplin at some point. There's Shirley Temple is at MGM. There's all kinds of stuff going on. It's really cool, really cool. But if you're not looking for it or not ready to look for it, it's not going to totally click. Once Upon a Time is very on the nose. That's Roman Polanski. That's Steve McQueen. That, Mank is really, really forcing you to immerse yourself with 1930s Hollywood.
True, but I would argue that Once Upon a Time in Hollywood does the same thing, but on a on a lesser scale, because we saw it soon after we did our Roman Polanski episode on Filmgazm, and we noticed those little details because we did the homework. We noticed, like, when Sharon Tate goes and buys a copy of Tess of the D'Urbervilles from the used bookstore. Little things like that resonated with us.
For sure.
We did homework. We didn't know we were doing the homework, but we did the homework. And we did the homework with Mank too. And this is a film where you really need to know this, like, what this is before you go into it. You need to see Citizen Kane to understand Mank.
100%.
And the fact that we did, like, immediately before we watched this, I feel like it enhanced the experience tenfold.
Yes. Yeah. And that's why we had to, bunch them together for this episode, is do Citizen Kane, Mank, and The Pride of the Yankees. These films that all kind of connect Herman to the Oscars. And we both obviously think that Mank will be up for a few awards.
Yeah, probably.
At this upcoming show. I really do think it's a borderline masterpiece. I'm definitely going to watch it again soon. I was blown away by the aesthetic, blown away by what it did for movie lovers like us. I was geeking out the whole time, and when I don't know exactly who everybody is, that makes it a little more interesting and more rewarding. And, it's in black and white and it's old school and I'm still doing my homework on some people. I know some people were confused on who that was. They thought maybe it was Charlie Chaplin, or I think some people thought it was Clark Gable, and they're like, who is that? And he gets kicked out of an office. You know, like, this is little things that are so rewarding when you do your movie homework, you know, your old Hollywood homework, your classic Hollywood, your screwball comedy homework. Because this movie just mashes all of that shit in one, while David Fincher's in control. And it's, well, right from the get-go, you're just kind of like, oh yeah, I am in wonderful hands.
Do you think this is Fincher's best opportunity to finally take home Best Director? Like, you think he has a strong chance this year?
I do. I think Mank has a chance to do a lot of great things this award season. That's the great way to, before we go to the 14th Academy Awards and start talking about Kane, let's talk a bit about, you know, the shout out to the Oscars, like, over and over with Mank. I mean, you literally see footage of the Biltmore Hotel, and then you see him have a little speech on the side with the award. Dude, this is up our alley, man. Or like, I don't know. I've talked to some people, some family members who just like didn't like it. And I'm just watching and I'm like, I don't understand. I'm geeking over here, man. I was so blown away by those touches, the Oscar touches. And that's why I think it's going to be up for a lot of Oscars.
That's true. I mean, it's a little shameless, but it is a great way to cap off this movie with, you know, Mank's Oscar win for the screenplay. And his speech, like, the speech that he would have given was so fucking spiteful, but pure Mank. And I love it.
Pure Mank.
I wish he'd been on that stage to say that.
I know. I love that last bit, and him kind of just barely holding it up for the photo, and it's just so good. And, you know, the Oscars in real life love a movie about Hollywood. You know, they love a movie about itself. And I anticipate that it will do very well, even though it has some mixed reviews so far. You know, I've noticed on Letterboxd right now it has like a 3.6 out of 5, and on, what does it have on IMDb as of right now? Let's see.
IMDb, it's sitting at a 7.5 and an 88% Rotten Tomatoes score, so pretty good.
That's pretty good. It's solid, especially for such a, tough film, that you really gotta, you gotta be on your P's and Q's and ready to watch, because it's like 2 hours and 15 minutes, and it's got a lot to say.
Yeah, you're never bored. There's no drag on this movie at all. You can tell that, Fincher has never really been one for dragging. His movies are finely tuned. And what I've seen so far from his work, I still have some homework to do, but I have yet to be disappointed. And I would love to see him finally take home a statue. He's earned it 5 or 6 times over at this point. And Mank is going to be very interesting to see how this movie pans out for award season, especially considering it's going to be a bare bones award season. And I really liked this. I'm glad I watched it, and I'm glad that Citizen Kane is the film that we picked for the week.
Same. It's just such a great connector, and I love that. We'll bring up Orson Welles now. I love that. I've heard people bring this up, and I've seen this in some reviews for Mank, that Orson Welles is kind of acting as Fincher. It's kind of like him. Oh, I'm going to use Orson as the guy who's like, just going in and like, all right, as if he's talking to Sorkin doing Social Network. And that's so cool, right? That these little things that you just get rewarded with when you know what you're watching and do your homework. And Fincher is a guy that we've talked about with Fight Club on this show. We will continue to bring up, forever. We talked about Zodiac over on Filmgazm before. That was almost a year ago now. We love the guy. We really do. Where does Mank, where does it rank right now for you amongst your favorite? Because I know Seven's huge for you. I know Zodiac. But where do you see Mank at?
It's up there. It's good. It's really good. I think at the top, it's an ongoing battle between Seven, Fight Club, and Zodiac. But
yeah,
right under there, Mank and The Social Network are creeping up, and I've still got some to see, but he does wonders with this movie. He really does, and it's all about the way this film feels. It feels like a snapshot into mid 20th century Hollywood at a time when producers ran everything, when Louis B. Mayer was the king of Hollywood, and that motherfucker. Every time there's a movie made about this time, he pops up and he's the most arrogant asshole in the movie. And the more I learn about this guy, I think we talked about him when we did the Wings episode.
Yeah.
He's the guy who established the Oscars, and he did it basically to shut people up and give them gold so they'll play ball. And he's the guy who ruined Judy Garland's life. Like, this dude was like a mafia don behind, like, who was making movies. And I think Mank really makes him look like a spineless worm. And I love that. More than anything, I love that.
Yeah, no, it was great. It's definitely like a villain,
Yeah, but people who don't do that homework, people who don't understand this era, they're not going to know who the fuck Louis B. Mayer is. They're not going to understand and appreciate the jabs at him. Whereas we're like, oh yeah, fuck it, give it to him.
Well, okay, that's a great point, because that bit in the MGM lot, and he's walking. They choose the walk and talk in that moment. They choose to do the walk and talk, and he's talking to the Mank brothers. And Joseph goes on to be solid filmmaker himself. Directs All About Eve. Jesus Christ! So you got this moment in time, and when you love movies, and you see that, there's no words. You get chills, because we've never seen that before. We've never seen such a pinpoint reenactment of this, moment in time in Hollywood, where we see this guy who is controlling everything, just fucking being himself, walking through, talking exactly about what he's doing, we have more stars than, in the fucking sky, all this crazy, egotistical shit. And you just can't help but fucking smile ear to ear when you're watching Oldman walk next to him. Just, it's mind blowing. And I definitely agree with you. This movie does not drag. It is not boring. If anything, I wanted more.
Yeah. My only gripe with it really is, like, I was hoping to see the production of Citizen Kane too, but
I love that though. It just, it's not really about, I don't know. It's so amazing, what it all is about. And, you can really break it down to, it's about essentially, parallels Citizen Kane. It's this rise and fall. And we love that shit. It's a rise and fall of Lou Gehrig and Pride of the Yankees, just a way different storyline. But same kind of premise. It's just watching a man move up the ranks, doing this thing, finds his niche. Mank, he's doing his thing, and everybody loves him, and then everybody hates him. Mank died at 55, was a severe alcoholic, and that's displayed in the film many a times. And Gary Oldman is so good at playing a drunk guy. Just the way he says "cigarette, please" is like, oh well, Oscar. Yeah, like Gary was great, and so was everybody else. Amanda Seyfried is gonna be in there in those 5 nominations for Best Supporting Actor. She was wonderful. It's really good, and obviously, if you listen this far, you've probably seen it already. Otherwise, we spoiled the shit out of it. So, I do think that it connects to Citizen Kane, even though it doesn't bring up the actual production. And Orson Welles is not in it a lot. It definitely does. What were your favorite connections? So we can we'll segue into Citizen Kane here.
Really just the way Orson Welles was portrayed. It's probably the most controversial part of this movie, is the way Orson Welles is really painted as an arrogant, talentless hack in Mank. And you got to have balls to go after Orson Welles. You know, widely regarded as one of the most influential filmmakers of the 20th century, maybe ever. And for Fincher to basically take shots at him like that, basically say, Welles had nothing to do with how good Citizen Kane was. It was all Mankiewicz. Like, Jesus. And that and the little barb about the Marx Brothers cooking hot dogs in Thalberg's office.
Oh my gosh. Unbelievable. That was clever as hell. I kind of had to pause it. Wait a minute. So good. Yeah, that definitely is something that I've seen that has stirred up controversy. Orson Welles fans saying, "Oh my God," and how I interpret it, because I think Fincher is such a incredible filmmaker, and I've seen him fuck with stuff like this before. I think he's trying his hardest there to keep it in Mank's perspective.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
This entire film. I'll bring up something really 8.5 from 1963 by Fellini. Uses the same thing of like, wait a minute, what's the narrative here? What perspective? Oh, we're from this guy's perspective, so of course they're an asshole to him, but they're probably not really an asshole. And Fincher is very, very, very good at that. And I think it's a fine line. But I saw it. I saw it early. I was like, okay, I see what he's doing here. He's not. I don't think Fincher is saying anything about Welles. I think he's trying his hardest to recreate how Mank was during that time period, because Mank was not an easy man to work with at that time.
No, he was not. And I definitely would agree with you if I hadn't read something Fincher said about that whole part of the movie.
Let's hear it.
Where he basically trashed Welles for his arrogance. And here, I'll bring that up on IMDb because it was a fascinating bit he said in an interview.
Yeah, perfect. And then we'll we're just going to keep talking about Kane, so why not?
Yeah, right on. So, Fincher was being interviewed about this film and about how he portrays Orson Welles, and he took issue with Welles basically. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah. Okay. Quote. Well, I think Orson Welles' tragedy lies in the mix between monumental talent and filthy immaturity. Sure, there is genius in Citizen Kane. Who could argue? But when Welles says it only takes an afternoon to learn everything there is to know about cinematography, let's say that is the remark of someone who has been lucky to have Greg Toland around him to prepare the next shot. Greg Toland, damn it, an insane genius. I say that without wanting to be disrespectful to Welles. I know what I owe him, like I know what I owe Alfred Hitchcock, Ridley Scott, Steven Spielberg, George Lucas, or Hal Ashby. But at 25, you don't know what you don't know, period. Neither Welles nor anyone. It doesn't take anything away from him, and especially not his place in the pantheon of those who have influenced entire generations of filmmakers. But to claim that Orson Welles came out of nowhere to make Citizen Kane and that the rest of his filmography was ruined by the interventions of ill-intentioned people, it's not serious, and it is underestimating the disastrous impact of his own delusional hubris.
So deep.
I fucking love that. Fincher basically saying like, yeah, he was good, but he wasn't the GOAT. He had so many people around him who knew what they were doing.
Oh, he is not the GOAT. I mean, you don't even need to really look at it that deeply. I love that Fincher does, because that's the way he is. Or just look at his filmography. It just does not stack up to the Titans. It is not even close. Just the sheer volume is not. No, like there's not nearly enough bangers in there to compare yourself to, like you said, the GOATs. But I love that he recognizes the influence that it has, because you and I are very much like that. We talk a lot of shit about guys, but we're also like, yeah, but this movie's great, like Chinatown.
Very true.
I love it, and that's part of the fun, right? Is being able to say this is dumb, but this part's really good, and being able to be gray about it, not so black and white. I like that part of watching movies and talking about them.
Yeah, for sure. One thing I was really hoping the movie would clear up, and this is something I've always kind of wondered about, but haven't really been able to find. Why was Orson Welles given complete carte blanche to do whatever he wanted with this movie? Why was the studio basically willing to say, You have final say. You can do whatever you want. For a guy who was 25 years old, who came out of nowhere, like, why was he so highly regarded by the studio?
I'm not sure, and I know there's books about it, and of course documentaries, and probably should have done more research on that aspect. But I think it was because of his talent with the stage. He was so good with doing plays, and I know, like, in the late 30s, he had casted like a super diverse cast and was seen as kind of ahead of his time in that way. But it's fascinating because Citizen Kane, Charles Foster Kane, the character, how you see it, it kind of resembles that, just kind of handed to him, sort of thing. Like, wait a minute, what's going on here? Like, why exactly is he able to just be the first guy in the 40s, just get free reins and do whatever he wants? I'm glad he did. but why? That is such a good question. I know there's plenty of things and to research that stuff. But hey, this is how we're going to be honest here. This is just my second time watching it.
Same.
This is our second time watching Citizen Kane. We're 25 years old, just like Orson Welles was. We're always watching films for Filmgazm in the show, and for our own pleasure. We love this stuff, and we both have talked about how we're going to do this at some point on the show. We're going to do it in some way, and it's a perfect time to pair it with Mank. And, when I first saw it about 4 years ago, I was underwhelmed. I'll be quite frank. I'll be honest. I didn't know what I was watching. I didn't know how huge it was. I had heard people say it's the greatest movie, whatever, everybody's talking about it, that, the stuff on the poster. But I didn't know exactly the influence and how much people looked up to the cinematography and the editing and all these different, technical things, and how advanced. So I was like, oh, that was cool. But like, I felt like I just kind of watched it to watch it, and left it at that. This show comes around, and I'm like, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to pair it with Mank. I'm excited to watch this. I've watched a lot of 40s movies and 50s movies and 30s movies since then, since I first watched Kane. And I tell you what, Connor, this is a masterpiece. They were right. They were right, and I was wrong. It is mind-blowingly rewatchable. It's something that I think I'm going to rewatch a bunch now. When I watched it again, I was like, oh yeah, wow, this pace is incredible. I love the beginning narrating. Whoa, the symbolism of Rosebud, all this stuff, all these cool things. Man, Charles Foster Kane becoming a monster and kind of just freaking out and having a moment of breaking. That's what I love. And I love that shit in Paul Thomas Anderson movies. Well, oh my God, I totally get it. I totally get why this is so well respected. Not just for the time it came out and all those things, and the controversy of the screenplay itself, and who has rights to it, and Orson Welles, and what did he, what people actually believed he did. The movie itself is amazing, Connor. and I'm very glad we got to watch it this week. I read your review, and I know you feel strongly about it, but I really do. It's like nearing a 10 for me. I really do think it is. It's not my 50 favorite movies ever, but it's in my 100 favorite movies. I'll tell you that. It's in there now, and it's in my subconscious, and it's something that I'm going to keep watching.
Very nice. I'm glad you feel so strongly about it. And I think, something I had texted you, I think the reason we appreciate this movie so much now is because of everything we've watched for these podcasts has reinforced a new vision in the way we look at film. And I fucking love that to death. Like, I think if we hadn't done, Angels with Dirty Faces and Wings and The Great Dictator, and for the prep work, Philadelphia Story and White Heat, like, we have exposed ourselves to so much incredible mid-20th century art. And all of that just funnels right back into our eyes when we watch films like Citizen Kane. And we get to see, we have an entirely new experience now. And I wouldn't trade that for the world. It's the best way to watch movies, and know what you're getting into and know what you're talking about. It's fantastic.
Yeah, man, exactly. And it makes sense that Citizen Kane would be one of the very first episodes we do. It's the 27th. we're in this thing now. You brought up those 40s films. I was equally just blown away by The Treasure of the Sierra Madre. Just blown away by that 1948 movie. That just, holy shit! I said the same thing. I get Reservoir Dogs now. It's fucking rewarding to do the homework and really appreciate it, and actually, oh wow, come out on top. Like, I liked it. That's really good. All right, 14th Academy Awards. We're going way back. We haven't done this in a while. I haven't gone back this far in a while. Sergeant York has the most nominations. How Green Is My Valley has the most awards and wins Best Picture. But Citizen Kane, of course, is the most well-known movie out of this. Do you think that it's a good thing that it lost Best Picture?
Yes, I do. I would have picked differently from How Green Was My Valley. I think this belongs to The Maltese Falcon, personally.
Great film.
But I think Citizen Kane losing Best Picture is a little dent in the legacy, where people say, this is the greatest film of all time. A lot of people say that. A lot of critics. It has 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's regarded, it always makes it into the top 3 on these, 100 of all time lists, like The Godfather, Godfather 2, and Citizen Kane almost every time. But I like knowing that it's flawed. I think it makes it a better movie, honestly. I think it lets people kind of say, oh, I wasn't a fan. I don't think a lot of people get to say that about The Godfather. But Citizen Kane has that. And I like that. I don't know why I like that, but I like that.
I think why you like that is because it allows it to be a stick it to the man film.
You know what? You might be right.
It allows it to be anarchist, anti-establishment, a fuck you movie, a movie that was like, fuck yeah, it lost because the Oscars don't mean shit. It really is that way. And I 100% think that had it won, I just, I think it would have messed with its legacy. But it is up for some awards, man, and we're going to talk about them. So where do you want to start?
Well, let's start at the bottom like we usually do. Best scoring of a dramatic picture, Bernard Herrmann. And that's awesome. Bernard Herrmann is also the guy who composed the score for Psycho. And
genius. Look how many names are on this.
Jesus.
There's like 20 people nominated for best scoring of a dramatic picture in 1942.
These early Oscars, they were just handing out nominations to every fucking movie. It's crazy.
Like, you played a note, here you go. You played a note, here you go.
I don't recognize any of these movies.
Well, there's Sergeant York there.
My dumb
Little
ass.
Foxes, How Green Is My Valley, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
I was looking at best scoring of a musical picture. My mistake.
Oh.
Where is Citizen Kane? Am I on the right page?
Yeah, that's hilarious.
Jesus, that's even more people. What the hell? All right.
Yeah.
Best scoring of dramatic picture. We have This Woman Is Mine by Richard Hageman. That Uncertain Feeling, Werner R. Heyman. Tanks a Million, Edward Ward. Suspicion, Franz Waxman. Great movie, Suspicion. Sundown, Miklos Rosa. So Ends Our Night, Louis Grunberg. Sergeant York, Max Steiner. Mercy Island, Cy Fewer and Walter Scharf. Lydia, Miklos Rosa again. The Little Foxes, Meredith Wilson. Ladies in Retirement, Morris Stoloff and Ernst Toch. King of the Zombies, Edward J.K. How Green Was My Valley, Alfred Newman. Hold Back the Dawn, Victor Young. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Franz Waxman. Citizen Kane, Bernard Herrmann. Cheers for Miss Bishop, Edward Ward. Ball of Fire, Alfred Newman. Backstreet, Frank Skinner. And All That Money Can Buy, Bernard Herrmann, the winner. So Bernard Herrmann did win.
20
movies. Whose idea was this? That is ridiculous. The Oscars.
I don't know.
You imagine if they did that today and there were just like 20 nominations per? We would fucking hate the Oscars.
Well, yeah, we already have major issues with them all the time, but yeah, that would make it unwatchable.
We'd equate it to the fucking MTV Movie Awards. Like, this is ridiculous. The whole point is, like,
man,
to celebrate the best that film has to offer, not every movie that came out. Christ.
Well, yeah, you got Bernard Herrmann, who gets the double nomination and the win. Citizen Kane, all that money can buy. So, not a lot we can say because there's so many fucking films, and of course we haven't seen them all.
I watched most of Sergeant York in elementary school in history class. I barely remember it.
Fuck?
I remember. Yeah, I know. I don't think that could have been going down. I remember York making a gobble noise and then waiting for the Germans to pop up and then sniping them.
Hell yeah. That's fantastic. I we will one day, do a Best Picture showdown with this year. That'll happen someday. Not sure when, but very, very curious because there are some well-renowned films in this group.
Yes, indeed. That takes us to film editing, where we have The Little Foxes, How Green Was My Valley, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Citizen Kane, and the winner, Sergeant York. And we're really not going to have much to talk about in terms of competition here, regrettably. It's just, we haven't gotten to really tackle this Oscars.
Well, yeah, that's again, we'll be able to do that one day, and we'll try to watch as many of these as we can.
Yeah. In the meantime, we'll just kind of tell you what was nominated. And if you want to go do that homework for yourself, be our guest.
Or yeah, if you hear a movie you like, give it an applause, clap for it.
That takes us to best sound recording, where we have another monster list of movies.
Jesus.
We have Topper Returns, Skylark, Sergeant York, The Men in Her Life, How Green Was My Valley, The Devil Pays Off, Citizen Kane, The Chocolate Soldier, Ball of Fire, Appointment for Love, and the winner, That Hamilton Woman. I don't even... What the fuck? I've never heard of half of these. It's amazing how much was being churned out in Hollywood in the early years. Just, 500 films a year. It was crazy.
Just screwball comedy. Oh, man, yeah. The 30s and 40s were wild, yeah.
Yes, indeed. Best art direction, black and white. Good God. We have Sis Hopkins, though the nomination was withdrawn. When Ladies Meet, That Hamilton Woman, Sundown, The Son of Monte Cristo. Ooh, I gotta look into that one. Sergeant York,
hell yeah.
The Little Foxes, Ladies in Retirement, Hold Back the Dawn, The Flame of New Orleans, Citizen Kane, and the winner, How Green Was My Valley. And I think the production design of Citizen Kane is fucking unreal. And how that lost is kind of crazy to me. I mean, he was doing things with production design that had never been done before. He was using camera tricks to make everything look bigger. He made this, he made Xanadu look almost like a tomb, like a pyramid for a great leader,
Oh, man.
Yeah, I think that this film should have won art direction straight up.
Yeah, we'll speak on Xanadu later.
Oof. Cinematography, black and white. Where is it? There it is.
Yeah, these are the order of these is bizarre. Yeah.
Yeah, they're still working out the kinks. They don't have all the established nominate categories, and what they do have is kind of a fucking mess.
Well, yeah, this is about 80 shows ago, so yeah.
God. Cinematography, black and white. That Hamilton Woman, Sundown, Sun Valley Serenade, Sergeant York, Hold Back the Dawn, Here Comes Mr. Jordan, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Citizen Kane, The Chocolate Soldier, and the winner, How Green Was My Valley. Another Oscar, I think, should have gone to Kane.
Agreed. And these are the things that people over time have been like, yeah, at any show, it should win all of those technical awards because of the way it moves and how influential it is. It's one of those, if you did the Oscars 5 years later, it'd win all of those.
Yeah, absolutely. And now we have some big ones. Best Director. We have Howard Hawks for Sergeant York, William Wyler for The Little Foxes, Alexander Hall for Here Comes Mr. Jordan, Orson Welles for Citizen Kane. The winner, John Ford, How Green Was My Valley. Hard to beat John Ford.
This is a big group here, my man. I mean, these are guys that are, William Wyler, John Ford, multiple Howard Hawks, multiple Oscar nomination type guys that are, you'll see their names a lot during in these times, in the classic eras of 30s and 40s. John Ford is, like you said, hard to beat. He's one of those names that pops out. Is there anything that Stagecoach and The Searchers? We talked about The Grapes of Wrath with Henry Fonda. Is there anything that like stands out to you for him? Because he's just such a legend.
Surprisingly, The Quiet Man.
Hell yeah. There you go.
I really enjoyed that. That was a very funny, very cute, out of left field John Wayne movie. And I think Ford won for that too.
Yes. Yeah, he did. Yeah.
He and John Wayne were a good pair. I think, their work together was very good. John Ford was just, one of the best of the time. And I want to point out that this film is the only film Orson Welles was ever nominated for anything.
Yeah. He's amongst greatness right here in this group. He's a one-time guy.
Yeah, straight up. So have you seen How Green Was My Valley?
I have not. It's one of the winners I have not been able to see. Of course, we're going to base a show around it one day.
I think Orson Welles should have taken this one. I think his direction for Citizen Kane really is genius, and I would have liked to have seen him take this for his for trying something new. I think it would have been cool to see the Oscars reward him for kind of sticking it to the way things were done.
Yeah, changing things, changing the game. Like this is art. I'm going to be artistic. I'm going to create something different, and we need people like that constantly to kind of change the game. The catfish should keep things fresh, and Orson Welles was certainly doing that with Citizen Kane. For sure, man. I want to see all these. Of course, we want to see everything.
Which ones have you seen?
Of these?
Yeah.
Of the directors, just Sergeant York and Citizen Kane. I haven't seen Here Comes Mr. Jordan, Little Foxes, or How Green.
All right. What about the pick of out of the Best Picture lineup?
Just add Maltese to that, and that's it.
Okay. Yeah, I'm about the same. Citizen Kane, Maltese, and Suspicion.
Yeah, I of course I need to see Suspicion. Of course.
That was a very smart movie.
Yeah.
Ripe for a filmgasm. Suspicion.
Always. I mean, yeah, you got Cary Grant, Joan Fontaine, and fucking Hitchcock. Let's go.
Best Actor. Orson Welles for Citizen Kane. Robert Montgomery for Here Comes Mr. Jordan. Walter Houston for All That Money Can Buy. Cary Grant for Penny Serenade. And the winner, Gary Cooper for Sergeant York. And from the bit I do remember, yeah, I think this was good for Cooper. I think he took this one.
Yeah, he's excellent. He's excellent. Well, it's so cool because we, got to watch him in The Pride of the Yankees.
And, we both fell in love with Walter Houston with Sierra Madre.
Yeah.
And Cary Grant, another guy we're very familiar with. I have not seen anything from Robert Montgomery, regrettably. Wells' performance in Citizen Kane. He was juggling a lot of different hats for this film. In terms of performance, where do you think he ranks?
I think it's excellent, especially in the time. You really look at it. He's doing the same. This is one of my favorite parallels in Mank as well, is watching a guy through a specific time. Of course we see him as a kid, but then we really see him in his 20s, and then as he gets older, and how Charles Foster Kane is just confused the entire time. It doesn't, quite know what he's looking for, and even if he does, he doesn't know how to do it. And I just love characters like this throughout film history, and I think Orson Welles does a damn good job of it. A damn good job. I think just the tone that he's able to get to. His voice is incredible, but the tone he's able to get to. I'm Charles Foster Kane. Those pitches. They're very, very authentic and very incredible. And I was very, very blown away by that part of the film this time around. the technical stuff, of course, going into it, it's just praised time and time again. But Orson is very, very good. He has a star power in Citizen Kane that's you just cannot take your eyes off his eyes. Not just him, but his eyes. It's so crazy.
For somebody 25 years old, he does play Kane like this is his, 50th movie that he's been building his entire career towards. It feels like that, but it's his first movie. It really is so weird when you think about it like that. He does have like 50 years worth of experience inside a 25-year-old body. It feels like that. It's not that, but it feels like it. I mean, I buy him as, 60, 70-year-old Kane, who's like lost everything he's ever cared about. And that's pretty admirable and pretty amazing. Not a lot of actors can do that.
Oh no, put that shit on the line. I mean, it clearly you can mess up your career, obviously.
Yeah.
And it has done it to other actors as well. It can mess with you when you do that shit, and can mess with the rest of your career. There's something to say about when you raise the bar that high. Where do you go from there? What do you do? What do you do? Especially in our eyes, as we just fucking interrogate and dissect every little thing about movies. And 80 years passes and this movie still stands. We just find any little thing we can to critique it or, poke holes in it because it's looked at as the greatest movie ever made. Fuck, man. You got to give the guy his props for the film just still standing today as it does. Because it's still a mind melter, man.
Very true. But like you said, it can, like, where do you go from there? And Orson Welles really didn't. I mean, he did a lot of, cool roles, Touch of Evil, The Stranger, but nothing ever on the same level as Citizen Kane. Yeah. And I wonder if that haunted him.
100%. I think you can see it. I think throughout his career, I watched F for Fake from the mid 70s. It's like a docudrama that he did. You can see these things, this man's identity is, in his own mind is in question. What he's supposed to do, what his job is, what his, duty is here on Earth. And it clearly Mank battled some of the same things, right? And it's just so cool how those, Mank and Kane just kind of parallel in that way. You're just watching these guys like, oh man, nobody really likes them by the end, just damn, tough stuff. You said in your review for Kane, having all the money really means nothing, that sort of thing. Even if you're the richest guy in the world, richest guy in the country, just doesn't really mean nothing if you have nothing else.
Yeah, it's true. Like nobody can buy love. And one bit I did want to bring up from Mank that I absolutely adored was the introduction of Orson Welles. When Orson Welles meets Mank, he comes in like the fucking devil in a dark costume, dark hat. Like he looks like a stranger who was going to buy your soul. And Mank is, shrouded in, like he's wearing a light jacket. It looks like good and evil. And they have that handshake.
Mank.
Yeah. I'm Orson Welles. We should talk. And it just feels so demonic. It feels like Mank is selling his soul right there. And in a way, he kind of was.
Yeah, man.
It's fucking.
Fincher's not afraid to be cynical.
No shit. Did we talk about? I feel like we brought that up on Fight Club. We talked about how Fincher world is like the worst version of that world.
He likes people who are trapped, and Mank talked about how he felt like he was trapped, and at the end of the film it states that, and Fincher, I would say, is to me the master of the modern suspense, whatever, thriller, whatever, all that stuff, entangled in one with, he's able to rally around this, quote unquote piece of shit over and over, and just trap him and trap him and trap him and make him make these crazy decisions over and over and scratch and claw. And it's fascinating to watch, whether it be Robert Graysmith in Zodiac or Mark Zuckerberg in Social Network, or I can't remember the character's name, Michael Douglas in The Game, Brad Pitt in Seven, Jesus Christ, the narrator Tyler Durden, the narrator in Fight Club. These guys are trapped in some of the darkest ways that you can put on the screen.
True, very true. Before we get to Best Picture, let's talk about the one that it did win, Best Original Screenplay.
Yes.
We have Tom, Dick, and Harry by Paul Jericho. Tall, Dark, and Handsome by Carl Thunberg and Daryl Ware. Sergeant York by John Huston. Howard Koch, Abram Finkel, and Harry Chandley. The Devil and Miss Jones by Norman Krasna. And Citizen Kane, winner by Herman J. Mankiewicz and Orson Welles. And yeah, fucking of course this was going to win screenplay. There's a whole fucking movie about why this deserved to win screenplay.
Yeah, that's why we brought him up, and that's why we're doing these movies and talking about them. And I love that it's Citizen Kane, Herman J. Mankiewicz, and Orson Welles. Oh man. And that's something we didn't really touch on. That moment in the movie when Gary Oldman, when Mank says, "I want credit." it's such a horrible request to want to be credited for your own fucking work. Ugh. And I like saw Sirius Black for a second. It's the best thing I've ever written. I want what's mine in this one. I've been fucked over a lot. I've fixed a lot of screenplays and not gotten any credit. I want credit on this one. And then you have Orson, you breaching the contract. Oh, such a good scene.
Well, I love when he chucks the chest of alcohol and Mank does not fight back. He's like, "That's what we need," and starts writing down a scene. God damn. It's funny that
Beautiful.
you say that you saw Sirius Black because I saw Jim Gordon.
Oh yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah, we both saw the franchise Gary Oldman. Yeah,
beautiful.
Yeah, I mean he was great. I actually think that there's something in my gut that tells me this performance is going to be undervalued and underappreciated for until later down the line. I really do. I think people just miss shit sometimes, and.
Yeah.
When so many great things are happening on the screen and Amanda Seyfried is so good. Yeah, I still stand by. I think Gary Oldman, so far from what I've seen, has one of the strongest performances of the year by far.
As much as I would love to see, Gary Oldman take home a second statue, as far as 2020 goes, I am still very much rooting for Delroy Lindo.
No, I'm hoping Delroy's supporting. Maybe. I don't know. That one's tough.
With Trial of the Chicago 7, supporting is going to be fucking loaded. So
it very well could be. Yeah, very well.
Boy, can't wait. I think the Oscars are late April this year or next year.
Yeah.
I wonder where they're going to put the cutoff for consideration.
I think it's somewhere. I think they have announced that, but I'm not sure exactly. I would assume they moved it. Typically, the show has been in February the past few years, so typically they would put it somewhere in December, right? But with this year, I don't know. Maybe they'll push it to early 2021. I don't know, but I do think Oldman, as of course Mank, and Amanda Seyfried as Marion Davies, I think they both have a chance at doing something, but I don't know. Again, something deep down tells me Oldman will be a little bit forgotten in this one.
Well, I mean, it's not like that. There's not precedent for that. It took him 30 fucking years of a career to finally even get nominated. Yeah.
I mean, and we got to talk about him a little bit more over on Filmgazm with The Fifth Element. And, that right there is a great way. You look at The Fifth Element, you look at Mank. That's the same guy?
It is really hard to believe. It's amazing. You can do that with every film he ever did.
Basically, True Romance, Leon the Professional, Sirius Black, Gordon, those major characters. Yeah, anything. Tinker Tailor, Darkest Hour, This guy's just a titan.
He really is. Do you think he'll get nominated at the very least?
I really hope so. I do. I think he'll get nominated. I think this movie will get a lot of nominations. I'm not sure about wins, but I think it's going to get nominated a lot. I think it's going to get a lot of love. It's about Hollywood, and I think those movies do well.
Yeah.
And I'm with you. I would love to see Fincher finally get that award.
They do love a good old Hollywood slow stroke, don't they?
Yeah. Yes, they do.
Speaking of Hollywood slow strokes, let's talk about Best Picture 1942.
Hell yeah.
We have Suspicion, Sergeant York, One Foot in Heaven, The Maltese Falcon, The Little Foxes, Hold Back the Dawn, Here Comes Mr. Jordan, Citizen Kane, Blossoms in the Dust, and the winner, How Green Was My Valley. And I can't really speak for this, but if it was my pick, I would give it to The Maltese Falcon.
I love that. I love that. That's really cool. I really want to rewatch that. And again, I think it's going to be really cool to do this year on a Best Picture showdown, just like any year. It's going to be so much fun to keep doing those. But I give it to Kane from what I've seen. But I also stand by what I said about what we both said about how it's good for its legacy that it didn't win. So it'd be great for Falcon to win. I don't know, man. I'm excited to see How Green Was My Valley. It's one of the winners I've just never touched.
I would have also, just because I've always thought he was super underappreciated, I would have given a supporting actor nod to Peter Lorre for The Maltese Falcon. But that's for another podcast.
Yeah, we're gonna get deep into that when we can. Our next Best Picture showdown, the next one that's coming up, will be episode 30. So we're going to do them every 5, episode 30, 35, 40. And, one day we'll do the films of 1941. It'll be great.
Absolutely. Can't wait. So those are the Oscars, which means it's time to talk about Citizen Kane.
Yes, it is. It's time to give out some awards for the film itself and just talk a little bit more about Kane. I don't think you clearly, or if I totally asked you earlier, what was the first time you saw this? Because I was about 4 years ago for me.
I watched. All right, my first time with Citizen Kane was my sophomore year of college, so that was about 2014.
Okay, so going on about 6 years or so. Okay.
It was in my intro to film class, and she had us watch a whole bunch of films to kind of get the lay of the land. Chinatown. Trip to the Moon, Great Train Robbery, The Godfather, some classics. And Citizen Kane was there, and we did that one week when we were talking about depth of field. And I watched it, and I wasn't that into it. I was very much like, there's a lot of just talking in this. I hadn't really seen a lot. I didn't really appreciate it that much, and I didn't finish it. I stopped. And here we are 6 years later, I'm much more well-rounded when it comes to film. I can appreciate things like this. I watch it and I'm glued to the screen. I understand it now. I love that. 2016 or 2014 Connor couldn't care less. 2020 Connor couldn't care enough. It's wonderful.
Story of our lives here. Yeah, man. I feel like that's a pretty similar road we've had, where the first time we saw it, we weren't just totally blown away like most people are. Well, like most people, that's actually an interesting thing. I find that a lot of young people just don't really connect with Citizen Kane. They don't care. It's boring to them. It's the opening narrations, like, what is this? Just totally, a lot of young people disregard. A lot of my friends, a lot of people I know that are just like, not for me. That's fine, but I'm glad we have a space here for two young people to talk about it, because we are not geniuses in this field. We're not. We're on a journey. We're trying to learn more, and Citizen Kane is one of those films that builds you up as a film fan, as a cinephile. It builds you up and allows you to see more and opens you up to new things because you finally realize all the influence that it had. That's why it's so powerful. And that's why I'm so glad we're able to do this, because I just don't think there's a lot of 25-year-olds just out there, you know, trying to really appreciate what's happening in Citizen Kane. Of course, with the release of Mank, people will probably be like, maybe should I do that? I hope so. I hope so. I think it's totally necessary to appreciate both films, watch them both. I really do. I think that's the way to go with this. And I certainly had a blast watching these. I basically watched them within the same, I don't know, 12 hours. Just an awesome day.
Yeah, I did the same thing. I watched Citizen Kane in the afternoon. I watched Mank that evening.
Yeah. Same. Great day.
Killer. Yeah. And I do think, you know, we're very much a niche. We're not, you know, we watch everything. There's very few people who do that. And especially at our age. And we are trying to become as rounded as possible and see as much as possible so we can understand the great ongoing journey that is film. It's always changing. And we want to know where it came from. We want to know the films that were significant along the journey. And Citizen Kane is one of those films. And it's very important to think to a cinephile to give this movie a chance. There's things in this film that, like, this is the first time they've ever been implemented when it comes to you know, camera tricks. And like I was mentioning depth of field. Their cameras were not like that. It was shoot and talk. That's all it was for most of Hollywood for a long time. Citizen Kane comes along and Orson Welles is manipulating the camera to create kind of visual effects that without really, you know, trying. It's so strange. There's a scene where they're in Xanadu, Kane's temple, and they're talking. And Orson Welles just starts walking to the back of the room. But you can still hear him. That was weird in 1941. This is not something that people did. And after Citizen Kane came out, everybody was doing it. This movie set a standard that no other film before it had done since like the beginning of since Edison, really. So I credit Citizen Kane with basically starting a complete cinematic revolution, even if they didn't know they were doing it. So yeah, if you're into movies, give this a chance.
Well said. That's as simply as it can be put. Is give it a chance. You know, I know plenty of people. My older brother, who I adore, and he loves movies. He just hasn't seen it yet. And you know, I really hope he gets a chance to check it out, because like you said, you'll just notice things. Like the audio. You know, the editing is just incredible. To say what's going to happen at the beginning of the film, that the main character is dead at the very beginning of the movie. Okay, you know, doesn't matter. They keep you on the hook the entire time. Something that has been mastered and has been copied over and over again with massive films like The Godfather 2, the narrative of going back and forth, flashback, go back, flashback, go back. And that's another great thing about Mank, that they do that over and over, going to 1932, back to 1940, back to 1934, back to 1940. And then in Kane, it's going all over the place. So cool how it goes through time, but still captures these different little things and tells you exactly what's going to happen at the very beginning. but you're along for the ride. It's about the journey. You know, you buy the ticket, you take the ride with Citizen Kane, and you're rewarded. Like hand over fist, you're rewarded as a movie fan, as a cinephile. Let's give this movie some awards. I think this is going to be really, really interesting. To this show before, thank you. Thanks for coming back. We have the Tarantino Award for Best Quote or Line. We have the Ennio Morricone Award for Best Music Moment. We have the Philip Seymour Hoffman Award for Best Performance. And then we have the Roger Deakins Award for the Best Moment or Scene of the movie. So Connor,
Yes.
What is your Tarantino?
I have two. And I think they both represent very different sides of Charles Foster Kane. And I'll just go ahead. So my first one is right when Kane buys the Inquirer. And they're wondering, how are we going to cover the budding war that's going on? And Kane says, "You provide the prose poems, I'll provide the war."
Oh,
And it's almost verbatim what William Randolph Hearst really said about the Spanish-American War. He really did say, "I'll provide the war." And that's something we haven't really touched on, is how
it was coming. It was coming.
This movie is one big fuck you to William Randolph Hearst, maybe the most powerful man in the world at the time.
Yeah, which of course Charles Foster Kane is looked at as most important man within the film. Yeah.
Yeah. And Hearst tried very, very hard to get this film destroyed, to get it shelved. He had Louis B. Mayer be his, fucking gopher to get this film shelved at MGM. But they got it out there, and here we are talking about it 80 years later.
Incredible. Oh, man, so good.
You go, and then I'll do my second one.
Okay, sounds good. This would come from Jedediah Leland. That's a great performance from Joseph Cotten throughout. And it's, again, it's, playing with, the flashbacks and then going to current time when he's doing, this interview, right? Jedediah is, and he's got this kind of weird visor on, kind of a robe and some fucking like Hunter S. Thompson style glasses. And he keeps asking for cigars. And he says something that just kind of rings with me and kind of makes me question sometimes. I question a lot, like, why do I just watch so many movies? And just kind of, I'm just cramming my brain with so much stuff. And Jedediah says, "I can remember everything. That's my curse, young man. It's the greatest curse that's ever been inflicted on the human race. Memory." And that's so much happening in one sentence. It's like a fucking Bible verse. It's crazy what it speaks to for film, for the future of film, for directors, writers, actors, and just human beings, man. The authenticity of saying that, God damn, memory will fuck with you. And it'll drive you crazy because you can't quite wrap your hands around it. And I love that. And I think it's a really wonderful performance from Joseph Cotten. And Leland Jedediah Leland is such a fascinating character.
Yes, indeed. Good pick. That's a very powerful line. And I was very much more following Kane just because of the way he talked, the way he always knew he was the most powerful man in the room. Everything he said had purpose.
Yeah.
And I love this line because I think it's the only time in the movie where he is truly honest. And he says, "If I hadn't been very rich, I might have been a very great man."
I knew that. I knew it. Yeah, man. That's another one. Powerful.
My God. It's, we're watching a man basically show different sides of himself to different sides of the world. There's Charles Foster Kane, the newspaper man. There's Charles Foster Kane, the romantic, Charles Foster Kane, the budding politician. But that's the only time where he's Charles Foster Kane, the man. Just that one brief bit right there.
Man, incredible. Great call to pinpoint that moment in the film where it's definitely purposeful to have that, singular human moment, within the film.
Yeah.
Genius stuff. It really is. It's a strong screenplay.
Yeah. Fuck yeah, man.
Well done, Mank. Well, let's move to the Ennio Morricone Award. We got some powerhouse music going on in this movie. Something that is well respected, well renowned now over time. Just influenced kind of that you can even hear it within the film noir era, and you look up through the 60s and how it just keeps getting tries to be replicated. Even something like from last year, like Motherless Brooklyn, is trying to do the same fucking kind of score, and I love that. I love the tone of it, and I think this is gonna be a fun award, man. What do you have?
I have the Charlie Kane song.
Yes. So when they're at dinner, yeah.
Yeah, when they're celebrating the paper and they're just singing this song about Charlie Kane, because it has such a Disney quality to it. It feels like a bad guy's song from a Disney movie.
Okay, right? We just did watched all these Disney movies last week. We did Beauty and the Beast, and I was like, is that Scar? Yeah.
It is such a weird moment. It's these people singing about their boss. It's so fucked up, especially by today's standards of employment. And I would you never see something like that now, because Kane is not a good man. He never was a good man. And for them to sing his praises like that, it's surreal. And it kind of goes against everything you're led to believe about who he is. But they seem to love him. And I was really kind of drawn into that in a way I wasn't expecting to be.
I was too, and I'll capitalize on that. I was really drawn into the Jedediah Leland, that character. The way I'll bring up the audio, the way that we're able to hear his side conversation while also knowing exactly what's going on within. It's like, how are you doing that, man? That's stuff that people don't pay attention to now, where you're not totally toning out everything that's happening in the room just because it's a fucking movie. Real life doesn't work that way. So Leland is forced to kind of like talk, in between what he when he can, and kind of whisper a little bit. And it's such a genius little bit. I love that you picked that. Bernard Herrmann, composed the score here. This is a titan. This is a guy who, you brought up Psycho. How about North by Northwest? How about The Man Who Knew Too Much and Vertigo? How about Citizen Kane? How about the Day the Earth Stood Still? How about Cape Fear? How about Fahrenheit 451? How about Taxi Driver right before he died?
Fucking hell.
The guy knows what he's doing when it comes to, making music. Died at 64. Really, really sucks. But he's a name that I've like, oh my God, that keeps coming up. and there's a reason why. Track 6 for me off of this particular score of Citizen Kane is my Ennio award, and it's the title of the track is Charles Meets Thatcher. Just look it up. It's about 1 minute and 30 seconds. Just look it up and turn that shit up full blast. It'll stir you up. It'll move you and it'll make you want to watch some movies.
Fantastic. Oh yeah, Herman's score, beautifully understated, but just powerful enough to creep into your brain and stay with you. It really is impressive work.
Yeah, it definitely just creeps, just kind of seeps into your soul, like this film kind of does. Just takes some time. So good. We got one of our favorite things to talk about in this entire show, the PSH, the Philip Seymour Hoffman. Sometimes it can be where we totally agree. What do you have here?
I know it's predictable, but honestly, he is amazing, Orson Welles.
Yeah. I thought about going a different route, but I don't know, man. When I really thought about it, and I thought about that scene when he freaks out and throws everything in the room. Oh man, that is some of the most dominant acting I've seen in years.
Dude, the intensity of his applause at Susan's opera, just the burning daggers into everything around him because he knows no, she is good. God damn it. She deserves this. When they mock her, they mock me. You could see all that in his eyes. It's incredible.
Yeah, Jesus. Yeah. His eyes, obviously it's a distinguishable part of his, his features and his face. And you know who it's Orson when you see his eyes, because throughout his career, he had a beard, didn't have a beard, this and that, but you always knew with the eyes, that's Orson. And that guy just stares into you, And I love it, man. I mean, when he screams, you know, I'm Charles Foster Kane, I really couldn't help but think of Daniel Plainview. I really couldn't. And just, I will drink your milkshake, you know. I love characters like that, man. I love them.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I can see, you know, I could totally see Daniel Plainview trying to run for office just so he can, you know, fuck up a competitor.
Bill the Butcher?
There you go.
Yeah, these are characters I like. I definitely feel like attached to. They're just so entertaining, and that's who I was reminded of for sure.
Beautiful. Well, that takes us to the Deacons Award.
Oh man, this is like I you know, you can look up lists online and they just have every scene fucking ranked because this is how, you know, well respected the movie is. But this is gonna be interesting, man. What do you have?
I have something I don't think a lot of people consider to be such a powerful scene, but to me, it represented something very interesting about Kane. And it's the scene where Kane first meets Susan.
Great choice.
From the meeting on her porch to talking in her apartment, because Kane has never done that before. You get to see a side of himself where he's almost nervous, where he is trying to impress her because she doesn't know who he is. And this is the first person who he's met in maybe his entire life who didn't know who he was. And he gets to be a little human and talk to her organically. And their meeting, it isn't arranged. It's not at a party. It's he runs into her on the street after he gets splashed by a car. And she's just like, hey, you want some hot water? And he's like, you know what? Okay. And goes into her apartment. It's just so sweet. Their relation, like the way their relationship starts, he really is like, you know, I'd love to hear you sing. And she's like, really? It feels so sweet. It's so against everything we've seen him be and everything we see him be after. It's like a brief window where he almost like thinks about, maybe I could be happy, but he fucks it up because that's in his nature. Happiness does not exist for Charles Foster Kane.
His ego and selfishness will rise above it. Oh man, that's powerful. A powerful interpretation of that moment in the movie and that moment for cinema. I don't know why, but my mind was going to 1985's Purple Rose of Cairo as you were talking, thinking about Jeff Daniels and how he breaks through the screen and has these moments of like these just the magic in movies, and Orson kind of does that in that moment that you brought up. And this happens time and time again where maybe a guy that we disagree with or don't see eye to eye with, he gets humanized, and we are forced to be like, hey, he's not such a bad guy. That shit will happen over and over in movies and will still continue to happen forever. When you take a guy who has bad habits or is a villain and you humanize him for just a little bit, you know. And Citizen Kane is, maybe not the first to do that, but it's certainly the most, well-respected movie to do so.
Yeah, it's Vito Corleone playing with his grandson.
Exactly. You can bring up so many films that we've talked about, and there's like a specific moment in the movie where that's what's happening. Is, hey, we're gonna something super subtle in Trial of Chicago 7 when we see Joseph Gordon-Levitt with his two daughters. Whoa. I don't want to feel for that guy, god damn it, but you do. Shit, you do. I love that. I love that. That's a really good call, man. I have a hard time topping that, but the Deacons on my side, it goes to I'll call it the intro, Xanadu. The transition of Xanadu, changing over time, moving to different, we have a zoo. We see a zoo at one point. And that how it moves right there. It's the beginning of the film. How it moves is so key, especially this time around for me. I got locked in when I saw that. You know me, I'm big on atmosphere. I'm big on what's going on around, with the camera and who's in control. And I felt like I was in some of the best hands ever when that transition is happening. Shit, just when he says Rosebud and drops, and the way the camera is focused, unfocused, and steadily moving about in a way that's not just, hey, let's look at the star and, point the camera here. Like you said, it's allowing Kane to walk and move. And I think the beginning of the film, that intro of Xanadu changing over time, and then you have the narration, and I don't think you can top it. I don't think there's a movie that opens up so strongly. The first 30 minutes of this movie fucking slaps. It's incredible. and I think it has a lot to do with that really powerful intro of bringing you into this specific realm, the specific world of Citizen Kane, and you can't beat it.
Beautiful. I love that from the get-go you had your deacons. Like, it was like immediate, like, fuck yeah.
Oh man. For sure. I think the scene when he fucking, is holding the suitcase and then, nah, fuck it, and throws it and just destroys everything in the room, that's a great scene. But I've seen that before. I've seen guys do that. I think I've seen guys do that better. But I don't think I've ever seen a movie do what Citizen Kane does at the beginning so skillfully 80 fucking years ago. I just don't think I've seen it.
Yeah, see, it's shit like that is the reason we're still talking about it. It really is the beginning of something amazing for Hollywood. Oh, wonderful. Powerful stuff. There's plenty of places to hear about this film and read about it. So we really appreciate if you're along for this ride, and hope you reevaluate Citizen Kane, keep watching it, and check out more of Mank's stuff, and definitely watch Mank on Netflix. Hell yeah. Even if you know the story, it's an amazing watch.
Yeah, man. Citizen Kane, for you, is it something that you're like, all right, I'm going to probably put this in the arsenal and watch it every couple of years or so? Or how do you feel about that? Like the way the legacy for you as a watcher?
I'll definitely be watching this again. I think this is a great film to kind of almost appreciate things that come after. Like, I can use this film to identify camera tricks and, dialogue. I feel like I'm going to mine this movie for gold. It's that kind of film.
100%. I feel the exact same way. I feel the same way about this one. Same way I do about another 40s film, Shards of Sarah Madre. I'm not done with that one. That one's you actually bought that one for me. That one's on the shelf and it's not going anywhere. And Citizen Kane's the same way. I've owned Citizen Kane for a while. I just haven't. I was waiting for something, and this was it.
Yeah.
This was it. It's so nice to be able to just kind of allow these thoughts to organically come out, because you and we did not talk about how we felt about this shit until we recorded, and that was very hard to do. because I had obviously we both had things kind of oozing out of us about Citizen Kane, about its importance. So this was a blast.
Yeah, this was nuts. I enjoyed doing this. I feel a little bit more rounded, just a bit, but I can feel it. It's nice. It's something. Yeah. It's like when someone asks you, do you feel older? And you're like, no. Yes, I finally do. Hell yeah. Oh man. Yeah, this was great. I'm going to give Citizen Kane an 8, but it is a strong 8, and it may go up in the future.
Yeah. I'm sticking with 9, but it's like right there. It is right there, right at the 10 mark. I really do think it'll take probably 1 or 2 more rewatches in the future to get it up there. And I'm always working on a top 100 films of all time list that just kind of changes for me all the time. And this is going to be slotted in there. Hell
yeah, absolutely. And anything else you want to add about Citizen Kane?
No, I don't. We mentioned Hearst really late in the show. That was intentional. I did not want it to become a show about that. There's a lot of podcast and again books and different things that talk about the development and the film represents. We want to talk more about the actual stuff happening on screen and talk a little bit about Pride of the Yankees and Mank. I think there's time and place for different conversations, and you could do a 10-part fucking podcast on Citizen Kane. So it's one of those films.
Yeah, well said. I do like, the way we approach film is very much, within the confines of the screen. And
yeah. And as we get older, we might that might change a little bit, but you and I are so about the product, and we've gotten to a place where we know this industry is riddled with monsters and fucking rats, and no, it's not always going to be, the best news when you hear about how a movie was made. You got to remember, hey, appreciate the piece of art.
Yeah, exactly. So with that, let's talk about what happened this week in film.
Fuck yeah. Lots of, I don't know about lots, but like something huge.
Yeah, we won't be doing that many of these, considering this segment is going to basically evolve into our new show premiering January 4th.
Yes.
For more on that, check out our Fifth Element episode.
That was fun.
That was fun. So starting out on a sad note, Star Wars actor David Prowse has died at 85 years old from an undisclosed illness. David Prowse portrayed the body of Darth Vader in the original Star Wars trilogy. James Earl Jones provided the voice. And the Star Wars community will be missing him.
That's very sad when you lose like a vital part to the beginning stages of something you are attached to. That very much sucks.
Well, and there's so few actors from the original Star Wars still left.
Exactly. You're looking at, this is going on over 40 years, right? Since that first film was made. So it's tough, man.
Yeah, it's a shame. Next up, James Wan and Overlord director Julius Avery are developing a new Van Helsing movie for Universal.
Okay.
I've heard they've announced this like 6 times in the past 10 years. Are they ever going to actually make a Van Helsing movie? I don't know, and I don't care. I happen to enjoy the Hugh Jackman one from 2004. I know a lot of people hate that movie. I find it very entertaining, and I know that they're going to try too hard. Unless, I say give it to Blumhouse and Lee Winnell. They know what they're doing.
Oh, Lee Winnell definitely knows what he's doing.
But we'll see. It was announced the Oscars are not going to be done through Zoom like the Emmys were. They are going to be an in-person telecast. And I don't know if that's the smartest way to go. It is, April 25th. So maybe we're going to have shit at least partially taken care of by then, hopefully. But I don't know. Maybe I would bet money that changes.
Yeah, I agree. It's 4 or 5 months away, but yeah, it's going to change, I think.
Another sad note, actor Hugh Keys Byrne has died at 73. He's known for playing the villain Toe Cutter in Mad Max and Immortan Joe in Mad Max Fury Road. Another badass villain who will be missed. We lost Darth Vader and Immortan Joe in the same week.
Fucking ridiculous, man. The nerds are mourning, and we are 2 of those nerds. Yeah.
Oscar Isaac has been tapped to star as Solid Snake in a film adaptation of the video game Metal Gear Solid. Did you ever play that?
Oh, fuck yeah. Snake is a badass. I also would play with Snake on Super Smash Bros.
I could never get into Metal Gear. I tried. I couldn't figure out the button scheme after like 20 minutes, and I was like, I was
terrible at it. I'm not a good gamer though. I'm more of just like, whoa, this is cool, and then I put it down after like a week. Yeah.
I have my favorites, but I don't really experiment with games, and with the podcast, I've focused almost all of my attention into film.
Me, same.
2 trailers I want to talk about before we get to the big news of the week. The Mauritanian. First of all, a biopic set to release in, I believe, February, starring Jodie Foster, Shailene Woodley, and Benedict Cumberbatch. And it's the story of suspected terrorist who is held in Guantanamo Bay for 6 years without bail, and the lawyers who tried to free him. Interesting idea. I know nothing about this story. I'm going to try to keep it that way because I'd like to go into this one blind. But what do you think?
Yeah, same. I'm not gonna try to read anything about it. I trust what's going on there, and I'm just gonna try to go into it blind.
Yeah, straight up. Another trailer we have is The Dig, starring Carey Mulligan and Ralph Fiennes. Also a true story about a massive archaeological find that was discovered in the hills behind a woman's home in England around the time World War II broke out. And this will be on Netflix at the end of January, and this looks sweet. I'm looking forward to this one.
Yeah, same. This is one that I was going to bring up to you earlier on the show, but I was like, oh fuck, I'll wait. This is one that we definitely will try to do on the show.
Yeah, indeed. Sneak preview is ripe for something like that.
Exactly.
And,
exactly.
Netflix is going to be our best friend for quite a while. And speaking of streaming, this was huge news. Warner Brothers has announced that they have committed to a 1-year deal with HBO Max, where they are going to be debuting their entire 2021 film slate on that streaming service and theaters simultaneously. This includes films like Dune, The Suicide Squad, In the Heights, The Matrix 4, and many others. This is pretty detrimental to the theaters. They are pissed.
Yeah, and of course you and I are devastated with the news for the theater. And this sucks very much for that experience and that part of the whole movie experience and what we love about it. But I do want to stay positive because it is a 1-year deal. It's not a lifelong deal. It's not a 5-year contract. It's a 1-year deal of saying, hey, let's get on track. Let's get on board here. Let's knock this thing out by next year. Let's get that experience back. Let's get that magic back because we want it. We got to work for it. We haven't worked for it as a society. We don't deserve to have it back. So let's work for it. Let's do this. Otherwise, more shit like this is going to happen. And that we do not want more stuff like this to happen. But if this is an example, so be it.
God damn, that's dark. But yeah, makes sense. We have fucked this up on every level. And yeah, I think it's going to be a long time before we get any kind of normalcy in the theater. I mean, and everywhere else, really. I mean, this is going to be interesting to see how the next couple of years unfolds. But, I'm always razor focused on the entertainment industry, and I am going to be monitoring how this works out for theaters. And we will have updates on the sneak preview. Oh,
yes, always. And obviously, we'll be doing all of those. Dune is a very anticipated film and is ripe for Filmgazm and sneak preview. So that's what we're going to do.
Yes, indeed. Looking forward to that. And that is all I have for this week in film. What are we tackling next week?
Next week is very, very special. We are doing a Regina King showcase based around her Oscar-winning performance in If Beale Street Could Talk. I really wanted to do a female performer this upcoming week. We have been doing these shows based around individuals, and it's time we do an actress, and I love her to death. This is the only Oscar nomination she has, so that's all we're really going to talk about in depth. Is If Beale Street Could Talk. We'll do a little bit about her career in that Oscar show, the 91st Academy Awards. Beale Street was up for 3 altogether. Regina King was the only one who won for the film. I'm very, very excited. I thought a lot about who to do for this episode. A lot of different women came to mind, but if I'm being honest with myself, Regina King is, like one of my cinematic heroes from Friday to Beale Street. I adore everything she's done in between. I'm very, very excited for that next week.
Fantastic. Yeah. And you know me, I'm on board for whatever you got planned. So
hell yeah.
It's a film we got to see in theaters 2 years ago.
Yes, at the Bijou. Yeah.
Film I had not intended to see until you invited me, and then I was very glad I watched it.
Yeah. I think the James Baldwin novel, I had read it, and then I was like, oh, I think Connor would really dig this story because it's a very, very good story. Well developed, well written, all of those things. and then just got some awesome performances inside of it. So we'll have a lot of fun with that one next week. It's not an easy film necessarily, but we're gonna praise it a lot and talk about the impact that it has. And it wasn't up for Best Picture, so that's gonna be fun to kind of bring up a movie that was up for some stuff but didn't get Best Picture, and I think it should have been in that group.
Yeah, and more on that next week. We're
Hell yeah,
a blast digging into that one. On Filmgazm this week, we are beginning our Christmas slate with 2015's Krampus, a fucking blast of a crazy, wild horror comedy. Julie will be joining me on that one, so look forward to that. And yeah, man, well done.
Yeah, had some fun. I hope everybody's enjoying their December so far and keep watching movies.
Hell yeah, and we'll see you next Sunday.